I want to show you how I edited this image of National Guard Danny that I shot in Sicily. Now, some of you might have seen the behind the scenes video that I posted to the community a couple of weeks back. So that shows that this image was actually lit using a paper bag for a modifier on my Yongnuo speed light. So as you can see, it gives a really nice light. Now this image was shot handheld. It all happened a bit quick, and I didn't have time to set up my tripod, but I also managed to get a clean plate of the background. So this is the actual image, and this is the clean plate here, and I'm going to show you how to get those two images aligned, and so that you can really quickly and easily just brush out the assistant Scott Stockhawk in this instance, who did a great job there as voice activated light stand. Really easy way, and if you sort of get into the habit of thinking in this way when you're shooting with lighting, it means that you can bring your lights in a lot closer than you normally would. Like, I spent a lot of my career working out how to light so that my lights were just out of shot, and so my lights ended up being a lot further away from my model than I would have wanted, and you're not going to get really nice lighting. And especially if you want to do a full length shot of someone and you want to have like a bit of a background, some character in there. If you're trying to avoid lights, it makes it really difficult. But using this technique, if you just remember this sort of step, that whenever you're doing a shoot like this, you can bring your light in, whether it's on a stand or someone's holding it for you, a lot closer to the model, and then get yourself a blank plate. I mean, ideally, use a tripod. You'll be able to line up your images a lot better, and you won't be wasting space, and you end up with a really nice clean image. So let's get into how we shot this and how I edited. So in a Lightroom, so what I've done is first thing I do is I'll go through and edit the shots and find the standout one. There's usually always one that stands out ahead of all the others. And just to show you the difference this sort of lighting makes to a shot, this is Danny just shot with daylight, so nothing remarkable. The light is really flat. It doesn't do anything for sculpting the face, giving definition, whereas you see this sort of down lighting, even with a MacGyver style paper bag softbox. This really gives definition to his jawline. It actually makes his muscles in his arms stand out. It makes him look really strong, darkening the whole background, killing all the ambience in the shot. Just makes the whole shot a whole lot more dramatic. So let's just go back and reset our settings. So that's the final image there. So let me just go back and show you what I did. I'll just go back and reset everything there, and I'll do the same for the background. Alright, so, and that's the white balance. First thing I'll do when I've got my image is I'm going to adjust the white balance. So I will look for a neutral area. If there isn't an area of grey, I'll find a white area that's not overlit. If I was to pick this area of white, I will get a really wonky reading. I'll show you. It just says, yeah, Lightroom doesn't like that. It says you can't pick that. It won't allow it because there isn't even a tone there. So you want to pick something a bit more neutral, which is this edge of the sign here. It's nice, like sort of off-white. and it just shows that I wasn't really all that far off with my white balance in this shot. So it's looking pretty good. I might cool it down just a titch. And I'm just going by what looks good to my eye. Next thing, I don't touch exposure or contrast. I don't like exposure basically increases everything overall, and it's too aggressive. And contrast just crunches everything up, again, too aggressive, so leave that alone. I might reduce the highlight, and that's just all about trying to get rid of any sort of highlights in the skin tone that might be a bit harsh. But this MacGyver style paper bag softbox has done such a beautiful job that the highlights aren't that extreme, so I'll give it about 11. And then the next thing, the big one for me, is opening up the shadows. So I just want to give a bit more definition to his body, and that's just bringing out a bit more detail there in the uniform. So about 50 there, and then I want to bring in the whites and blacks. So option, holding that down, click on the white, and just going across until I see a little bit of white coming up. And I'll do the same with the black. So holding down the option key, click on the black, and I've already got some black in there, but we want this to be a bit moodier, so I'll just go a little bit further, and then I just have a look and I do my before and after. It's not extreme, it's not a lot. The lighting's done a lot of the work here for me in making this image moody, but I have brought in a bit more detail here in his uniform. And I'm quite happy with how that's looking. Finally, I want to add a bit of clarity. Now you can go to town with clarity. It's a bit addictive. It's like Nutella. Once you start, you can't stop. But I just try and exercise a bit of restraint with both. So I think about 50, and I just go before and after. I might have gone a bit overboard, but it's looking good to me. And then I want to get rid of some of that digital glow, so I just knock back a bit of contrast. So that is looking good to me, and then just bring back a bit of vibrance, which just brings back some of the colour there that the saturation knocked back. So bit of before, after, and that's looking, I'm pretty happy with how that's looking. The last thing, so once I'm happy with the overall adjustments there, what I want to do is now apply that to the background image, which is my clean plate. So the idea behind that is to make sure that everything I've done to this image as a general adjustment is applied to my background image. So then when I bring these two images together, they're going to match in contrast and color balance and all those things. So basically what I do is I click on copy. You get all your check boxes there, so I'm going to copy everything except any local adjustments, and I haven't done any to this image. So check on all of those. So copy. I haven't cropped the image yet or done any adjustments there. I know the angles are a bit out, but I'll do those last in Photoshop. So I've copied all the adjustments, and then I click on my background image, and then I'm going to hit paste, and basically that applies everything. White balance is the same, colors are the same, contrast is the same, and you'll notice that when there's images with a bit more detail in the background, a bit easier to get away with a shot like this. All right, so happy with how my two images are looking. Now I'm going to take this into Photoshop to do the final retouching. So I can go ahead and hit on File, Export, choose how I want to export the image and what folder I want the image to go to, which is like my preferred method for doing something when I'm retouching images. I will select all the images that I need to retouch, export them all into a separate folder. I'll name that folder, raw images after the job that they're named after, and then go ahead and retouch them. But in this instance, where it might be a single image, there's actually a quicker way. And basically, if you just right click on the image, you can go edit in Adobe Photoshop, and it just sends it straight to Photoshop, which saves you having to create a new file and store it somewhere. And then once you've finished editing that file in Photoshop, it then saves it in Lightroom for you as a separate file with all the adjustments. So if you're working on single files, it's probably something that you might want to investigate. Something else that you might want to think of when you're doing this is the preferences that Lightroom exports the file to Photoshop. So you can change those by going into Lightroom Preferences, and under External Editing, there's a whole lot of little drop-down menus, so you can either have, it'll either edit as a TIFF or a PSD. I prefer to edit in TIFF, and then you've got your choice of color settings. The recommended for Lightroom is Pro Photo. It gives you the full range of colours. I tend to stick to Adobe RGB. It's just what I know. If you're only exporting to the web, sRGB is the better one. And then you can go between 16 bits or 8-bit. 16-bit is going to have more information in the file. So if you've got an image, it's got lots of colours, lots of detail, lots of information, and your computer can handle it, then I'd be editing in 16-bit. It's going to give you a lot more information to work with. All right, so that's it. That's just the presets, and then every time you export from Lightroom to Photoshop, you're going to that's how it's going to do it for you. So let's go back into Photoshop now, and let's see now. So we'll get rid of this one because I've doubled up. I already had two prepared earlier. So I've got my background and I've got my hero shot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hero shot and drag it over my background shot. All right, and just make sure they're kind of lined up. And then I go into my layers palette, and so I've got, if I click on the top layer, that's my hero, that's the top shot with the assistant in it, and then the underneath shot, that's the background, the clean plate that I took. So I'm actually going to hit Shift and click on background so that both my layers are selected, and I go into Edit, Auto Align Layers, and basically what that does is Photoshop will now match those two layers exactly. So alright, so you can see now that Photoshop's taken the information from both layers and told me that I wasn't straight when I took the first or the second image, and so it's had to, I've lost a little bit of space down the side and the top as it's aligned it. But if I just click on my top layer there and knock the opacity back, you can see that Danny moved in the blank plate that I did, but like everything that's important, the arch is in exactly the same spot, and that's what we want to be able to do this next step. So what I'm going to do is just grab the eraser tool and kind of a smallish medium sort of brush, and I'm just going to go ahead and brush away the areas that I don't want in this frame. So in this case, it's everywhere that's been lit. So this whole sign, it's really dark. I don't want that. I don't want the light. As great a job as Scott did on in the assisting, I don't want Scott in this image. Sorry, Scott. So I'm going to actually go ahead and brush this out. So basically I've got my eraser tool and I'm just brushing, and all I'm doing is taking away the top layer, and it reveals the bottom layer, which was the clean plate. And that's the area where the light was hitting the sign there. Now I've got to be a bit careful when I'm coming up to removing this part of it, because there's a bit of flare. And I just want to make sure I'm not using the arch. As you can see where the arch is lit. Alright, so I'm going to make my brush smaller, so I'm just using the bracket keys there. And just taking a bit of care now, just to match up those areas. Alright. And I can increase. So the bits, the parts that I've lost down the side and at the top, I can probably retrieve those again just by getting that background again and placing it back there. I can probably save that. So just going over there. Lining it all up. And there we go. So assistant removed. Surgery was a complete success. And next step, I'll go ahead and commit to that, flatten the image. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is just create a new burn dodge layer, and I just want to burn some of these areas away and get rid of these people annoy me in the background. The dog, actually, I'll get rid of the dog first. So I've created a new empty layer, and I'm just going to go in with the magnetic lasso. I quite like it for just cutting out small areas like this. Oop. Start again. Alright, so just tracing. And it's just basically that dog that I want to remove. And so I'm just going to select a colour nearby and just go in and brush over. Now notice how I've left all this area. I don't mind that. It was just I found the dog to be quite obvious there in the shot, so I just got rid of that. And then what I might do is I'll now commit to that. So flatten the image, and we'll do a new burn dodge layer. So layer new, soft light, fill with 50% grey. Okay, so this is how you do burning and dodging. Make sure I've got my black and white selected, and with a brush tool I can now go ahead and burn and dodge just like in the old days in the darkroom. So knock my opacity back to about 25, and I'm just going to come in, and so just go over some of the areas. So I'm now sort of just burning that in. I don't like that sign. I want to get rid of it, so I'm burning that in a bit. around there. And this is like exactly what we used to do in the darkroom. This could probably all have been done in Lightroom too. These people annoy me. I did ask them to move, but they've gone back and sat down there. And so there you go. So that's just going around and just getting rid of any little distractions. Just darkening the shirt a bit. You could actually go to town on this if you wanted to and really bring out his muscles and darken them. So just darkening the edges there, and then switch to white, and that dodges, so I could actually start adding some highlights. Just following the natural highlights that are there. And it just brings more definition there as well. So I just want to knock back. So it's just areas that I just think look too lit, and I'm just trying to knock those back a little bit by burning them in a little bit. All right. So, and I'm probably just going to give his face. It's looking a bit bright now. Overall, so let's knock that back. Happy with that. I'll commit to it. And then I'm going to just create a new layer, and I'll just give his skin tone a little bit of a clean up, and that's using, I just want to get rid of some of the shine that's there. So if I've got my brush tool selected, hit on option on an area near a highlight, so there, it'll select the same color, small brush, and I'm just going to go over, and it's basically like applying makeup really, and I'm just going to clean up some of the highlights. I'm not getting rid of them entirely. I've got my opacity quite low, but I just want to make them less obvious. There's so much you could do. Like I could do like a proper retouch, but I like to keep the character in the face, so I'm not going to do it too much because it tends to look too clean, too proper. But you can easily get carried away doing this. So it's just knocking back any of the highlights that are too obvious. Just cleaning all that up a little bit. And I can do the same. I can bring in a bit of highlight into the eyes, so just by going into the brown of the eyes, going into the colour that's selected and maybe brightening it up slightly, and then brushing a little bit into that, and that just gives, you do it as kind of little flecks, that just gives a little bit of a kick to the eyes. You can even do it to the whites, just to bring in make the there you go. Alright, so there you go. You can kind of see it there in the forehead, and if you think that that's too much, you can always knock back the opacity, because his nose is starting to look a little bit flat, because I've lost the highlight there. So I might just decrease that so it brings the nose in. Alright, and then commit to that. Final thing I might do is maybe just sharpen the eyes a little bit. And there's lots of ways to do that, but I just like to go over the eyelashes, go over the eyes. You know, there's so much more you could do to this. I could keep going for hours if I wanted to, but I'm pretty happy with how that's looking. So we started with just the background. Oh, maybe finally the last thing I might do is probably just make sure that I can crop and make sure that my verticals are vertical, and in this case they're looking all right. Commit to that, and then that's the final image there.